foundation of mindfulness on feelings. 3. To destroy the mistake on permanence, he preaches mindfulness on the mind. 4. To destroy the mistake on the self, he preaches the foundation of mindfulness on dharmas. It is for this reason that he preached for no more and no less. B. Foundation of mindfulness on the body. Question. How does one obtain these 4 foundations of mindfulness? Answer. The yogin who is established in pure morality and is practicing exertion wholeheartedly considers the 5-fold impurity of the body. What are these 5 impurities? 1. The impurity of birthplace. 2. The impurity of seed. 3. The impurity of intrinsic nature. 4. The impurity of intrinsic characteristics. 5. The impurity of the final outcome. 1. What is the impurity of the place of birth? Head, feet, belly, back, thighs. That which is called a woman's body is a collection of impure things. Inwardly, it contains a stomach, a belly, excrement, urine and other impurities. Outwardly, there is a wind conditioned by the afflictions and actions, a wind that blows on the seed consciousness and introduces it within the 2 viscera. During 8 or 9 months, the seed consciousness dwells in a pit of excrement and urine. Thus it is said, this body is foul and revolting. It is not from a flower that it is born, neither does it come from Kampaka. And it does not come from a jewel mountain. This is what is called the impurity of the place of birth. 2. The impurity of the seed. By means of the wind of deceptive concepts and wrong thoughts, the father and mother blow upon the fire of sexual desire, blood, marrow and fat escape, get hot and are changed into sperm. The seed consciousness conditioned by previous actions settles in the blood and whitish sperm. That is what is called the seed of the body. Thus it is said, the seed of the body is impure, it is not a precious substance. It has not come from pure innocence. It has come only from the urinary pathways. That is what is called the impurity of the seed. 3. The impurity of intrinsic nature. From head to toe and on all 4 sides, the body is a lowly rag. Everything in it is full of impurities. Decorate it with garments, bathe it with perfumed water, nourish it with the best dishes and food of many flavors. At the end of one night all of it will be impure. Even if that you clothe it in celestial garments and feed it with celestial food. Because of the body itself, all of it will become impure. Then what can be said if you give it only human garments and human clothes? Thus it is said, formed from earth, water, fire and wind, it transforms everything into impurities. Empty the sea to bathe the body. Still you will be unable to clean it. That is what is called the impurity of intrinsic nature. 4. The impurity of intrinsic characteristics. This body with its 9 gates is always secreting impurity. The eyes spill out rheum and tears, the ears produce wax, the nose contains snot, the mouth has saliva and vomit, the anus and the urethra constantly empty out excrement and urine, and the hair pours sweaty impurity. Thus it is said, all kinds of impure things fill the interior of the body. It flows ceaselessly, like a filter sac containing dirt. That is what is called the impurity of intrinsic characteristics. 5. The impurity of the final outcome. Thrown on the fire. The body becomes ash, devoured by insects, it becomes dung, placed in the earth, it decays, decomposes, and becomes earth, put into the water, it swells up and decays, or it is eaten by water insects. Of all corpses, that of man is the most impure. His impurities will be explained at length in reference to the 9 concepts. Thus it is said, examine the body minutely. It ends up necessarily in death. Difficult to control. It gives nothing in return, ungrateful like a lowly individual. That is what is called the impurity of the final outcome. Moreover, from birth until death, everything that moves close to the body, everywhere that it rests, all is defiled. Just as perfumed clear waters that flow in 100 rivers are changed into bitter salt as soon as they reach the great sea. So whatever the body eats, the most delicate dishes of various flavors, beautiful colors and fine smells, as soon as they penetrate into the sea of the belly, are changed into filth. Thus the body, from birth to death, always contains disgusting impurities. The yogin wonders if this body, impure as it is, does not have some permanence. Wrong. It is a great suffering. This body is the place of arising of all the suffering. Just as water, arises from the earth, wind from the ether and fire from wood, so all the inner and outer suffering comes from the body. The inner sufferings are old age, sickness and death. The outer sufferings are the knife, the stick, cold and heat, hunger and thirst, etc. It is because there is a body that these sufferings exist. Question. The body is not suffering alone, basically, happiness also comes from it. If there were no body, who would experience the 5 objects of enjoyment as they like? Answer. The suffering which the 4 noble truths mention this and cognize is truly a suffering, but worldly people call it happiness. It is necessary to rely on the noble truth and reject error and doubt. This body is really suffering because it rests on the great suffering of samsara, and it is only a lesser suffering that constitutes happiness. Thus when a man condemned to death undergoes punishment instead of being executed, he feels great joy. This punishment is really suffering, but as he escapes from death, the condemned man calls it happiness. Furthermore, recent suffering is happiness, in contrast to the old suffering which is suffering. Thus, when one sits down one feels happiness, but when this position persists, it gives rise to suffering. At the beginning, walking, standing and lying down are happiness, but in the end they too are suffering. Whether one is bending or one is stretching, whether one is bowing the head or raising it, whether one looks straight ahead or to the side, whether one is breathing out or breathing in. Suffering always follows the body. From conception and birth to death, there is not a single moment of happiness. You enjoyed pleasures as if they were happiness. When the sickness of lust increases, you seek